Hi everyone, it's Erin Scott here. Welcome to your October 2019 Alchemy Scope. Let's take a look at your growth processes, your natural growth processes for this Libra new moon cycle, which is correlating with our month of October, through three different modalities: an art channeling, a divinatory message, and an analysis of your astrological cycle. Sag, so let's take a look at the art channeling and see what came through for you here. You can see that I'm starting out with ink pen. And immediately the form that came was this big oval, okay? Cut in half. So in the middle of this oval structure, felt like almost an egg structure. Line halfway through it with home foundation question mark coming up down at the base. You can see here with the pastel, we have like this, lime green, apple green coming out. And then Easter. So we have this kind of oval egg form. We have Easter next to it coming up. So let's take a look. We're looking at the speeded up version of the process. You can see there was a lot of kind of contemplation for your process here. Okay, you can see at the base, Sag, that there's like these brown, they felt like vines, almost like upward turned roots, like a root system coming up and out from that bottom corner. Brown and orange. And then Easter is turning orange. So the bubble that is containing Easter is turning orange. And here we have these 6 lines coming, kind of underlining the S, actually, in your name. 6 lines with kind of balls on the end of each of these. I don't know what this means yet. Now, this was the interesting thing. So out of that ball with Easter in it, there's ears forming, okay? A smile, a mouth, nostrils, and eyes, okay? Now, I will tell you, the very specific thought about this as it was coming through was Gizmo and Stripe, which are names of gremlins, right? So we're going to talk about this. We're going to analyze this because this is juicy. I haven't really analyzed it fully yet. I've just looked up some of the meanings, but we're going to tie it all together here. So we have Easter becoming a gremlin, okay? Right next to these 6 lines. Now the top of this egg, like within this egg structure, we have this blue sky, and it really does feel like blue sky, like opportunity, potential. But again, we're going to talk about it. And then lines within that blue sky, right? Let's see what else came through here. Then there was a darker green that wanted to come through. So with this kind of, let's say, green grass or new growth that's kind of to the left of this egg structure, like the new green, there was also an older, more mature green, okay, which can indicate time, that there's time that's going to pass, for example, but we're going to talk about this. All right, Sag. So let's take a look now at the stilled image here so we can really get a grip on what this is about, because it is fascinating. Okay, first thing out was this kind of contained form, this oval form. Now, it did feel like an egg, okay? And when the Easter came through, there wasn't the tie between the egg and Easter, right? But it's important that this formation does feel like an egg. There's some containment of a new birth. Again, we're tapping into the October process. So what is the growth activated for you now? Well, you are dreaming a new dream. Something wants to be birthed. You're beginning the process of birthing. It must have to do, for a lot of you, it must have to do with some foundational element of your life, Sag. Something with regards to property, home, some home base, where you're located, location, etc., where you're located. But there's something about feeling rooted, grounded, or home in general, finding a resonant place, getting to a place that's more stable It might be that you're currently in a living situation where the mortgage is too high, the rent's too high, you're desiring a different lifestyle, you're desiring to homestead, or you're desiring just something completely different. Keep in mind, the home and foundation sector, Sag, is fourth house Cancer. This is also your emotional foundations. So for some of you, this is going to have to do with property, land, home, family, location, something about where you're located, or the kind of home that you're living in, whether it's a house or an apartment or a tiny home or mobile living, the kind of home, okay? But there's an uncertainty that's still activated, it appears, in October. And the bottom half of the egg, Sag, is, and I'm getting like some chills going on right now. So let's finish talking. There's some activation here of truth that's coming through for some of you, certainly. But the bottom half of this egg is empty. It's blank. There's no coloration in it. It is a field of confusion right now. It is very perhaps Neptunian. In fact, indeed. We're going to look at your astrology, so we'll talk about that. But you do have Neptune in your fourth house. So we're going to talk about this. But indeed, there's a blank lack of clarity. Let's call it that. A lack of clarity with regards to this foundational aspect of the dream. And what I get with the whole egg here is it's almost the dream of your life. Okay, and the bottom half is, where are you going to be, right? The top half with the blue, which ultimately came through at the end, for me, is blue sky potential, blue sky opportunity. It's a time for you, if you can hone your energy and your mental focus. This is a time to dream the dream, because you can tap into the blue sky potential with the dream for your life that you want to bring forward here. Okay. Now, the second thing that came through was the circle, Easter, the word Easter with a circle around it, right? And you can see ultimately it became this head, and the circle and the head is kind of behind the egg. So what I get with that is that there's something approaching in springtime for you around Easter time, where you might very well have, astrologically, I have not looked that far out for you, but that will come in these monthlies. We're going to look at what's unfolding. But what I will say is this. It might be that a lot of you are kind of looking to the spring, that you're looking to make some sort of a change and plan the logistics now. Or dream the dream now and start planning the logistics now for the dream to maybe become manifest in the spring. There's something around Easter time for a lot of you. Now, symbolically, Easter is about revival, rebirth. This is a new life, a new chapter, a new embodiment. So again, for a lot of you, there's a dream that wants to become manifest, and a lot of you, for whatever reason, you're either looking at the new birth to happen in the springtime or around Easter, or something to that effect. There might be more that's going to come out about Easter. In fact, there will be, because Easter ended up becoming the gremlin. Okay, so let's just talk about that right now. Now, the ears emerged first. So let's talk about that. So Easter with the circle, the ears erupted out of the sides of that bubble. The ears are representing being attuned to, you're listening, you're paying attention. And the ears are large on this particular gremlin. It's kind of almost like a Yoda head, right? So there's something here about large ears, paying attention, having your ears peeled for some new information coming your way or opportunities that might emerge. So in October, you're listening, you're paying attention. Now, the gremlin, I'm going to read this to you. I actually looked up the premise for the movie. I saw Gremlins. This was back in the 80s, But I looked this up because I wanted to read this little paragraph to you, because for some of you, This is just simply going to ring true. It's going to connect with you in some way. So let me read this short plot line. Randall Peltzer, a struggling inventor, visits a Chinatown antique store in the hope of finding a Christmas present for his son, Billy. In the store, Randall encounters a small furry creature called a mogwai, which in Cantonese means devil. The owner, Mr. Wing, refuses to sell the creature to Randall. However, his grandson secretly sells the mogwai to Randall, warning him to remember 3 important rules. Some of you are going to remember this, okay? This was an amusing film, Gremlins, okay? But it did have a lot of violence in it too, which it was actually condemned for, FYI. So, warning him to remember 3 important rules that must never be broken with regards to these gremlins, okay? The mogwai. Number 1, do not expose the mogwai to bright lights or sunlight, which will kill it. Number 2, do not let it come into contact with water. And number 3, never feed it after midnight. Okay? So I'm just going to read a little bit more. Randall returns home to Kingston Falls, where he gives the mogwai to Billy as a pet. Billy works in a local bank where he fears his dog Barney will be captured and killed by the elderly miser Mrs. Deagle. Randall names the mogwai Gizmo, and Billy makes sure to treat him well. When Billy's friend Pete spills a glass of water over Gizmo, 5 more mogwai spawn from his back, a more troublemaking sort, led by the aggressive Stripe. So Stripe is one of these mogwai, and Gizmo's another one. Gizmo and Stripe, right? And Stripe is the darker one, right? The more mischievous one. Billy shows one of the mogwai to his former science teacher, Mr. Hansen, spawning another mogwai, on whom Hansen experiments. Back at home, Stripe's gang tricks Billy into feeding them after midnight by severing the power cord to his bedside clock. They make cocoons, as does Hansen's mogwai. Shortly after, the cocoons hatch, and they emerge as mischievous reptilian monsters that torture Gizmo and try to murder Billy's mother, while Hansen is killed by his gremlin. So I'm going to leave it there. I mean, the plot goes on, but that gives you the basic for this kind of interesting emergent idea, everybody, of this gremlin head. Now, this is just a head. It's not the whole figure of this little creature, right? The head definitely indicates thoughts and mind. So I wonder, Sag, if as you're desiring this new identity for yourself, as you're wanting and beginning to imagine and build the dream of a new life for you, I wonder if the gremlins of the mind, the little monsters, the little devil thoughts, the spinning thoughts, based on past patterns and wound sets and old ways of operating, I wonder if the rebirth, originally that circle said Easter, which is all about new life, new birth. Then it became a gremlin. So I wonder in October if you're actually allowing the mind, the pattern mind, the wounded mind, the spinning thoughts and projecting into the future, the past, if you're letting those gremlins actually infect the dream for the new beginning that you're wanting to create for yourself. That's actually what I think that this is talking about here. Now, next to the head, next to the ear, are these 6 lines. Now, 6 symbolically is connected to balance, 3 above, 3 below, spirit, matter, harmonious relationship between, as above, so below. That's 6. 6 also talks about finances, security, home, and family. There's a stability factor to 6, almost a logistical and familial kind of stability factor to the 6 energy. So I wonder if indeed, with regard, again, and we have home and foundation there with the question mark. So there's something that you're wanting to build, some kind of vertical ladder. It's right underneath S too. Let me look up the Pythagorean alphabet. What is S? S is number 1. So I've been getting a lot of A's, so far this month. There's a lot of A's, which is also associated with the number 1. S, indeed, is also associated with the number 1. So Sag, under the S, there's these 6 lines. So there's something about you as an individual wanting to create some sort of financial stability, familial stability, home stability, certainly home and foundation, where you're located, the kind of home and lifestyle that you have is not known yet. You're building that dream. Now, down at the bottom of that corner, the lower left corner, we have these kind of roots that are based in the earth and then growing upward through that egg. I don't think that's a negative thing at all. I do think that I almost get that you're starting to do research. The brown is grounded. There's logistics, like practical matters with the brown. I think that you're starting in October to plan some logistical pathways, okay, for the things that you might know. You might not know yet about what you really desire with regards to home and foundation. You might want stability. You might want X, Y, or Z, but you don't have all the details figured out. However, you do have some things that you understand. You already know that you have certain resonances, and you know that there are some aspects of your dream that you're clear on. I think with the brown kind of upward turned root system, or vines that are going upward, there's a practical nature to the outreach or the research that you're doing. In addition to that, orange is also imbued there. And orange also became the color of the Easter bubble, which is ultimately the color of the gremlin face. Now, orange is about new information, education. There's an expansiveness to orange. So there's something here about new learnings, but there's something coming up with regards to the research that you're doing or the logistical plans that are starting to take place in the month of October. The orange information that you're coming upon or something that you learn about this month somehow starts to instigate some gremlin energy in the mind. This is fear-based stuff, fear-based thoughts. So be discerning. This is telling you what a tendency might be. This is all coming forward for growth edge stuff. This is part of your natural evolutionary cycle. So if these tendencies of mind are coming up, then you realize, great, there's discernment there. Look how the mind naturally activates into the fear. Now, behind the egg and underneath the gremlin is indeed land, earth, right? This is earth. And indeed, it's new growth because it's green grass, bright green grass. And then underneath it, there was the darker green that wanted to come through. So there's something there about matured grass. And what I see here is time. You're wanting to establish something new with the bright green, and you're wanting it to be long lasting with the more matured green. So you're wanting something maybe rooted, grounded, that will last a while. For some of you, maybe you have felt quite transitory for a while and you're ready to put down roots, literally. I mean, here we have these kind of brown roots coming up through the egg. So a lot of you are wanting to find your home and connect in and develop some sort of a root system and stability when it comes to home and place and family perhaps too. But you're going to have to watch the mental gremlins. All right. Okay, Sag, really good. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at what came through for you with regards to your growth edge, the optimal evolutionary process for you this month. Now, you're receiving excitement lines. This came through last month as well. I don't think it was for your sign. I think it was for another sign. But for this month, for you, the growth is excitement lines. Don't get caught in routines, okay? So here's the reflection. This is written by Cindy Solano. If you find that your life is not very exciting, it might be time for you to change your routine. Get up earlier or later than you usually do. If you normally set an alarm clock, don't set it for a day and see how long you need to sleep. Eat something you've never tried before. Call a friend or relative you haven't spoken with in a while. Try an outdoor activity or go dancing. Stay up late or look at the stars or the moon. Life is more interesting and opens up your mind and spirit when you change things up. So, as you can see here too, just in the background here, beautiful day. I did receive, of these palmistry cards that I pulled for the signs, there were several that got cards that were associated with this light blue. So you can see the sky blue card that you got, the beautiful day when I went out and pulled the cards with that same blue essentially. So indeed, and with your egg, with the art, you did receive that blue in the upper part of the egg. I just want to replicate that message of this. The sky is the limit for you. There is a level of potential that you are naturally called to tap into, but to really catalyze that and to be in that space of potentiality, because the gremlin mind can take you down. And indeed, the interesting thing too about that gremlin face and that Easter bubble becoming orange is it essentially had kind of a pumpkin shape to it, kind of low and flat in the oval. And there's pumpkins in the background here in the image. So I just want to kind of point that out. And of course, we're approaching Halloween. We're going to have Halloween at the end of October. So you might scare yourself by some of these, let's say, automatic default thought processes that come into play, that kick in. So it becomes a matter of becoming awake and aware to them, becoming discerning, etc. All right, beauties. Now let's take a look at your astrology. Now you can see from the chart here, we're looking at a general archetypal chart with Aries at the ascendant line. So we're just looking at the natural zodiac wheel, whole sign system for the Libra new moon cycle, which is imbuing the energies of growth for all of us for this October cycle. But I have my notes here, and so we're going to talk about specifically for the Sagittarius archetype, what is activated for you this month, all right? Now, let's start with the big stellium. So, we always want to really focus in on this major transmutation energy that's activated in Capricorn. Now, for you, this Capricorn energy has been and continues to be in your second house of self-value and essential needs. This is about your sense of self-value, how you love and honor the self, but also what you value. What is your ethic in this world? There's heavy transmutation happening in that area of your life. Now, that stellium of Pluto, Saturn, and the South Node, by the way, as I'm recording this today, I'm recording this audio on the new moon on Saturday, the 28th of September. Today, the Saturn is essentially exactly conjunct that South Node. South Node is at 13 degrees 54 minutes. Saturn is at 14 minutes exactly. 14 degrees exactly, 0 minutes. So we have been contending with Saturn conjunct the South Node for months, and it is quite intense. No matter where we're holding it in the chart, no matter where you hold it in your natal chart, no matter where the archetypal chart is holding it, it's an intensified process. And where we're experiencing it depends on our sign, and certainly depends on your particular blueprint based on your birth data specifically. But if we're looking at Sagittarius, the archetype, indeed, second house is being implicated strongly for a need to confront old patterns, possibly old rigid patterns, old toxified patterns of not valuing the self. And Pluto has been, for now many years, since 2008, been working to transform your sense of self in this way. And indeed, inherently too, it's transforming your work. So you've been going through this very prolonged reorientation of what you value and where you apply your value in regards to the work that you do and the money you receive. Where is it, what do you value, and what is it that is really going to optimally meet your essential needs in a way that is bliss aligned, you know? But my point is this: we now have this exact conjunction, which is full on, because, well, especially now with this new moon. But even if it weren't having an exact square, or not an exact, but a very active square formation to this new moon, it's still intensified, because there's a confrontation of ourselves that we must contend with this exact conjunction. Now, specifically, we have this new moon in Libra happening at 5 degrees Libra, 5 degrees 20 minutes, Sun, Moon conjunct. Sun is the externalized self, Moon is the internalized self. This is the self meeting itself whenever we come to a new moon point every month. So it's the unity, the unified self, right? Well, this point, this kind of 0 point of the unified self now is meeting in Libra. So it has to do with the individual as we relate to people. How do we cooperate with people? How do we instigate harmony with people or not? So what is our relationship dynamic with the people in our lives? Okay. Now, this new moon is happening at 5 degrees. 5 is a number of change, chaos, creativity, freedom. But it's certainly action, movement, change. There's a lot of energy with 5. But there's also the chaos energy there, and there's the potential in that chaos field for creative expression. There's action there, and there's certainly change indicated. So the fact that the sun and moon are conjunct at a 5 degree point naturally indicate that this month ahead in the October cycle is a time of the self changing with regards to the relationships in our lives, and that relationships will be changing for the individual. So we're changing as we relate to people, and people are changing as they relate to us. It's all part of the same thing. And in addition to that, the sun and moon are squaring the South Node, Saturn, Pluto points. Actually, I apologize, not Pluto, but the sun and moon are squaring South Node and Saturn. And so that indicates for you, especially for you, because what we're talking about here is the new moon in your 11th house of belonging, and the square to the South Node Saturn in your 2nd house of self-value. And so, Sag, for you, there could be narratives playing out in October where you feel that you don't belong, or that you seek to belong, but you're still working out, or you're still entrenched with old patterns of not valuing yourself, or being too self-contained, where you don't express, well, I want to say that you're not expressing your gifts. That could be one aspect here, especially because also in Libra is Venus and Mercury conjunct. And indeed, the new moon, Mercury, and Venus all are squaring Pluto. Or excuse me, let me rephrase that, sorry. The new moon, so the sun and the moon, Venus and Mercury are all squaring the South Node and Saturn, okay? In addition to that, Mercury and Venus are squaring Pluto. So the reason why it's not the total stellium and the total stellium is because there's a little bit out of orb here. You know, Pluto's at 20 degrees Cap, and the Sun-Moon conjunction is at 5 degrees. So those aren't really squaring, but we have all the other square formations. So it does have to do with your sense of self-value and your sense of belonging. So how you relate to people, how isolated you keep yourself, how open you allow yourself to be, how mutable and changeable you allow yourself to be with the group or the tribe. 5 degrees Sun, Moon in the 11th house. How changing are you? Are you going to adapt to the tribe, to the group, as needed or as optimal? Or are you going to stay rigidly attached to your own, let's say, value system that might keep you too protected? That's that Capricorn 2nd house. So hopefully that makes sense. Now, in addition to that, we have a few other things here. One is that we have a T-square formation of Jupiter, which you have in your 1st house. You've been growing and expanding. You've been learning more about yourself. There's a more expanded sense of identity that's been developing naturally for you over the last 10 months or so. And there's a square to that Jupiter up to Virgo Mars, and that Virgo Mars is opposed Neptune, and that Neptune is squaring Jupiter. So we have this T-square formation. And I do think that Neptune, number 1, in the 4th house is certainly part of a very much more prolonged chapter for you of going through various experiences, because there's many ways by which Neptune in the 4th house shows up. And you've had it there now for a while. But Neptune in the 4th certainly can indicate a dissolution of home or a confusion about where you belong. Confusion about the connection to home, family, or location. Okay? Or some delusion around it even. But a lack of clarity certainly can be something that gets activated during this prolonged cycle. Now, are there other ways that this shows up? Of course. All right. Certainly gives you more intuitive, emotional capacity, psychic ability at a deep emotional level. Okay. But what we have here, though, with this Neptune opposed Mars up in your 10th house in Virgo, squaring that Jupiter in the 1st house, there's something here, Sag, about really having more drive and motivation for work. Now, you've been having that activation actually over the last month, but Mars, as we enter this October cycle, it's still there in Virgo in your 10th. So there's inspiration and the ideal reality for you, the ideal home. One of the activations with Neptune through the 4th house is dreaming the dream for the home, truly, okay? So imagining the ideal, seeking the ideal scenario for your family. Like some of you might dream a new dream for a family, etc. But that is inspiring action that you're taking. There is some action that you're taking with that opposition of Neptune and Mars, okay? So, and with the square to Jupiter, it's part of your expansion process. So you're going through a whole narrative throughout, I would say, the entire month of October, where there is going to be new beginnings that you start to take logistical action on. With that Mars in the 10th opposed the idealization process that you're going to, you are inside really connecting to your emotional threads. What brings you bliss? What is it that you seek and want? What roots do you want to create? What's the ideal root system that you want to create for yourself? Neptune 4th. And so there's planning and action and work that you're putting in. Now, for a lot of you, this is going to look like the career, the work that you have. There's some building with regards to the work or the career that you have. And for some of you, it has to do with you as teacher. you as a model, a role model, okay? Specifically, because of that Mars squaring that Jupiter in the first. You identify as a teacher. You are ruled by Jupiter, but with Jupiter in that first house archetypal chart of Sag, you are remembering yourself. There's an aspect of you that's simply remembering itself, and you're connecting with that. And there's some sort of action that you're taking toward your goals for yourself. Now, there's also this other trine formation that I'd like to talk to you about too. That Mars in Virgo in your 10th house is trining Capricorn in the second house. This is quite good because it's indicating that action that you are aspiring to take is benefically, harmonically fed by the transformational processes that you are undergoing with regards to your deep sense of self-value and with regards to the work that you do that creates the income that you make in order to meet your essential needs. So there's work changes afoot, and it's benefically aiding the actions that you're taking with regards to the day-to-day processes, the planning and the strategy processes that you're undergoing with regards to, let's say, new work that you're trying to create for yourself, or an expansion of the work that you're doing, or a honing of the work that you're already doing. Okay? Now, the other thing that I'd like to talk to you about too, and I didn't talk about this with the other signs that I've recorded so far, but this is important, is the Libra new moon, sun moon at 5 degrees Libra, is quincunxing exactly Uranus and Taurus. For you, this is impacting your 11th house and your 6th house. So the 11th house of humanitarian work, hopes, wishes, and dreams, but certainly tribe, group, friends, community, and belonging. The new identity with regards to group and friends is quincunxing Uranus in the 6th. So there is some challenge as we are birthing, and I say we because this quincunx is activated for all signs. But for you, it specifically has to do with your day-to-day work and the groups that you're connected with. There's some new beginning of identity that is activated for you that might experience some challenge as it's navigating a new birth or a new growth. And it has to do with changes that could come about with your workplace, current workplace perhaps, or just in your day-to-day reality. So shifts and changes could create circumstances over October that could feel crunchy for you and could create some issues of dissonance with regards to groups of friends, groups that you're associated with, tribe, and again, the idea of belonging, okay? So that's activated. Now, the other aspect that I'll talk about here, of course, we have the nodal axis. North node you still have in your 8th house, and Cancer 8th house for you is about connecting to the deeper aspects of your emotionality. And I think I talked really more about this in the September scope. I'll talk about more in the November scope. But what I want to talk about now for you is Varuna. The asteroid Varuna is at 3 degrees Leo in your 9th house. It is exactly trining 3 degrees Chiron in your 5th. So 5th and 9th. And Chiron, of course, is the master teacher healer, trining Varuna, which is this Hindu god, and really what I have found to represent a core level of confidence. You know, it's like a skill set that you just recognize, and it's not wounded. And indeed, Varuna exactly trining that Chiron in the 5th house of individuation, creative expression, freedom. You as an individual, individuated, creatively expressed person. That's the 5th house. there is a strength. There's a harmony and a harmonic link between this ninth house of your belief system, and this is in Leo for you, Varuna Leo ninth house. So this is also about the teacher that's out on stage and on media. But there's a level of confidence that's activated for you. You've had it here, by the way, for a little while now, for the last few months or so. So for you, Leo is trining that Chiron in the 5th. So your perhaps teaching role or being out on stage on a bigger platform, reaching more people, reaching a bigger demographic, etc., it's linked by harmony directly at that 3-degree point to that master teacher healer in Aries in the 5th. Now, is there insecurity with Chiron? Of course there is. There's a vulnerability there because there's a wound that we feel. But ultimately, we hold a skill set there. So you're navigating that journey, and that Varuna trine is giving you some level of natural confidence. So, Sag, this is going to be a good month of growth. It's going to be very interesting. With the artwork that came through, I was fascinated by it. I have lots of information on my website, services that are on sale. If you're listening to this in September, there's still services on sale. I will also have some offerings in October. You can find the links below. For those of you that are not yet familiar with their natal story, your blueprint, learn about it. Get an in-depth analysis. Be in touch. Because to understand with clarity our natal blueprint is the foundational component. It's a tool to understand our story fully so that we can participate, with confidence and clarity and full understanding with regards to the evolutionary processes that are at play and that are encoded, the mastery arcs that are encoded within the natal blueprint. So it's a critical and foundational tool. So think about that. You can learn about that below as well. All right, Sagittarius, I send you much love for your month ahead, and I'll look forward to talking to you in November. Bye-bye.